Recording in progress.
Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with introduction of board members, starting to my left.
I'm Laura Bentley.
Adam Danella.
Hodge Patel,
David Jackson.
Billy Carmen.
and Don Kurt and Zach Stafford are not in attendance this evening. Next item on the agenda this evening, I'll seek a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published by the City of Milton.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll second.
Get a motion from Laura and a second from David to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda as published by the City of Milton, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 5 on this evening's agenda is approval of past meeting minutes. I'll seek a motion to approve the November 14th, 2023 meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton.
I'll make a motion to approve the November 14th, 2023 meeting minutes as published, or as
I'll second.
Get a motion from Adam and a second from Billy to approve the November 14th, 2023 meeting minutes as published by the City of Milton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes for November 14th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 6 is consideration of primary variances. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief, if granted, will not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public's safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. The first primary variance this evening is V23-19-15235 Birmingham Highway. This is a 3-part variance. Michael, will you please present?
Good evening.
Good
Evening.
The address is 15235 Birmingham Highway, and the applicant is seeking the following variances. Part 1, to reduce the 50-foot minimum rear yard to 45 feet for existing house. Part 2, to reduce the existing barn house and animals from 100 feet to 1 foot to the northern property line. And finally, Part 3, to reduce the existing barn house and animals from 100 feet to 13 feet for a second northern property line. The site is an 8.75 acre parcel located in Birmingham Highway. The property is zoned AG1 and located in the rural Milton overlay district. Applicable setbacks for a lot are 60-foot front, 6 25-foot sides due to its unique shape, and a 50-foot rear setback. The applicant is seeking to reduce the 50-foot rear setback to 45 feet for an existing house to reduce the existing barn house and animals distance requirement for 2 side property lines from 100 feet to 1 foot and 100 feet to 13 feet. The lot is narrow at the front of the property with only 47 feet of frontage on Birmingham Highway. And as you expand outward direction, the lot has, and the property expands in an outward direction. The lot has a depth of 914 feet and a width of 594 feet as shown on the survey in Exhibit A. There are state waters located along the south and north property line, and you can see them right here if you follow my cursor, along the northern property line and along the entire southern property line. Exhibit B details the flattest area is in the middle of the property where the riding ring and pasture land are located. And here's a contour map which summarizes what I just described. Right here is the flattest area in the whole property. And it slopes downward in both directions towards the state waters. In September 2023, the applicant submitted a grading permit where city staff discovered the non-compliant structures of the property. The applicant is also proposing a 940 square foot home addition that meets setback requirements. The applicant purchased the property in 2019. And as you can see, the barn is in red, the existing home is in blue, and the proposed home addition is in green. The applicant bought the property in 2019. However, the Fulton County Tax Assessor's website details the single-family home was built in 1985. However, the applicant stated in his letter of appeal, a direct neighbor informed him that he poured the foundation of the original house in 1968, and the house was completed in the same year. The barn is believed to have been built in the 1970s and has a length of 125 feet and a width of 30 feet. And here's a further zoom in showing the barn. And as you can see right here, the existing house and the proposed addition. Here are the proposed elevations of the home addition. The applicant is proposing white hardy panel siding to match existing house and a new brick veneer water table. Here's the floor plan, and you can see right here, if you follow my cursor, the bolded outline is the home addition. Here's a neighbor support map. We received actually one letter yesterday, so your letters are updated from 610 Colmswood Way yesterday. So the packet has been updated. So summary, we have support from all bordering property owners, 15125, 15175, and 15245 Birmingham Highway, 885, 895 Colonial Lane, and 610 and 625 Colmswood Way. And here are the letters of support. Here's a view of the pasture land. Here's a donkey and 3 horses. View to the east, which is the backyard, and a view to the west, which is towards Birmingham Highway. And just want to point out the view to the east, this house right here was the last letter they got, the 610 Colmswood, and that was a sticking point for the DRB to get that signature, and the applicant provided that yesterday.
Can't see that house, it's the next house over.
Okay, correction, okay. Okay, so 885 Colonial Lane is the one that we see from that picture? Okay. Stand corrected. Here's a view to the north and view to the south, which also shows the pasture land. View of the barn. And this is a rear shot of the barn from the neighboring property, showing the proposed landscaping that I believe the applicant put in 2019, the existing evergreens. Here's a view of the existing house. On December 5th, 2023, the DRB met had the following comments. Derby recommends approval of the variance request. The board acknowledged that both the barn housing animals and the single-family home predated the incorporation of the city. It was also discussed that the existing barn has a muted color, and the applicant has planted evergreen trees along the north property line that faces the adjacent neighbor. It was also discussed by the board that the applicant has made an effort to keep the proposed new single-family home addition outside of the rear setback. If approved, staff recommends the following conditions. Per the variance site plan from Ironwood Design Group received on November 16th, 2023 by the Community Development Department, and to provide a foundation survey prior to vertical construction of the proposed home addition. Any questions for staff?
Michael, on the boundary survey, can you point out the specific location of each of the three parts of the variance that are being requested?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So here is the barn, if you hold my cursor, in the northern part of the property. And here is the existing single-family home in the southeastern part of the property.
So in the variance for part 2, where's the 100-foot to 1 foot?
I think the blow-up would be better. Yeah, so 1 foot is right here.
Okay.
And then the second variance is right here. To the left. So it's in proximity less than 100 feet from two property lines.
Thank you.
And can I, just for clarification, the 100-foot, excuse me, we put that in our ordinance. Do you know what year that was? The 100-foot? Or is that was acquired from Fulton County? I'm just trying to
No,
establish
that's a good question.
how it's been in
Yeah.
place for.
From my understanding, it was here when cityhood started. Paul, do you have any idea? Do you recollect?
I think it carried over from Fulton County.
Yeah.
Okay,
And just some of these barns just weren't built to.
right, and long before.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
additional
That's
questions
it.
for staff?
Good.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
We'll have a combined 10 minutes for the applicant to make an opening presentation, public comment from anyone wishing to speak in favor, and a closing statement from the applicant. There will also be 10 minutes for public comment for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Will the applicant please come forward at this time? State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Sam Sampson. I live at 15235 Birmingham Highway. My wife and I purchased the property in 2019. We drove by it on going to a wedding in Ball Ground, and went by after church. It was a fall day, sunny, and it was kind of funny farm-esque, like cue deer. They started jumping across the pasture, and we were like, this is the place for us. So we put an offer in it. We closed on it in December, and we actually moved to the property in March and the weekend of the shelter-in-place order in 2020. So with my 5 kids, we moved out there with my wife, and we started our farm life. So the house, as Michael said, on the tax records, it says it was built in '85. Our neighbor, Mr. Cotton, who's lived here his whole life, told us, that's not true. He's like, I know when it was built. I laid the stones for that, and I used the money to buy my '68 Camaro. I know for a fact when it was. So, I don't know where the disconnect is with that, but we've had a terrible time trying to get records for the property from Fulton County. So I'm not really sure where that is. I also don't know why the house was built in the setback, if the setbacks didn't exist then, if it was family property, if the property lines were different. I don't really know, because I can only see back as far as the tax assessor records allow us to see. As we discussed, the new addition, the proposed addition, we are not planning on increasing encroachment into the setbacks. We're There was no planned addition to the barn, so the barn is planned to just stay as is. We do have horses, as Michael took a picture of, that are in the barn occasionally, but generally they're out in the pasture. Our view is that, for the 4 criteria, that if it was granted, it would not offend the spirit of the ordinance. One thing we noticed on Milton's website is that it's dedicated to preserving the natural resources and protecting Milton's special rural characters. I think you can't pick another property that doesn't just kind of underscore the rural character of the city. It's one of the things that drew us to the area. We love driving down the rural view shed areas and seeing the horse fence and seeing the pastures. It's exactly what drew us into it. So I feel like we meet that criteria. In terms of demoing the structure, we do feel like that would be in a contradiction of what the goal of the ordinance is. It seems that Milton is often preserving barns. It's one of the things that I was looking through the zoning book, or in the zoning waiting room, there's a book of barns, and I was hoping that my barn would be in there, because then I thought it was totally a slam dunk, but it wasn't. So I was thinking about slipping one in there, a sheet of it, but I didn't do that. So the other relief criteria says that there's no, substantial detriment to public good. The barn's in good condition. It's been taken care of. There's no real public health or welfare issues with it staying there. And then that's part D too, also, is that there's no health and welfare safety issues. So I feel like, we wouldn't have built a barn in the setback. We wouldn't have built a house in the setback. That's not something that we would have done. We weren't really aware of that. When we purchased the property, I would love to keep everything where it is. Would love to do the addition. I have 5 kids in a 3-bedroom house, and my wife would love for us to move forward with that. So I don't know if you have questions regarding that, anything that's in our letter or regarding that. We did go around. Our neighbors are in support of us keeping things where they are. One thing from the picture that you probably couldn't tell, we did plant some buffer plantings along that back property line because the house is kind of far back. I mean, I actually love that it's back there. A lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't you build a new house on the middle of the hill? And I'm like, because I don't want to be in the middle of the hill. I want to be away from Birmingham Highway. But I do like privacy, and I respect people's privacy. So we put some evergreen plantings up through there. I'm a landscape architect in the area. And so we planted some native evergreens and kind of filled in that buffer a little bit more. So I'm not sure if you have questions regarding our application. I'd love to answer them for you if I can. So
One thing that it's more of a comment, your
Yes,
letter,
sir.
in your letter of appeal, your explanation for each of those 4 conditions, you really touched on them. So normally I would ask questions, but because your letter was so thorough in terms of your reasoning behind each of those criteria, I don't have any questions. I'm not sure if any of that.
No, I mean, I think the only question I really had, I appreciate all the detail you went into. The only question you kind of answered was the evergreen trees. I was curious to why you decided to plant them, but you did explain that.
I mean, so it's,
I didn't know if somebody, if you had talked to your neighbors or something like that, but obviously I
Yeah,
understand your explanations.
I kind of wanted to do that. I think they don't mind either. So we still hang out. There's a gate. I put a gate so we can go hang out and have a fire pit and that kind of thing. But doesn't mean, if I'm in the hot tub, we need to wave at each other. Hey. So
I appreciate it, Mr. Sampson.
I do have one other question. I mean, I know you may not know the answer to this, but where the barn is located, I mean, was there a property, that property line being 1 foot? Do you know anything about the neighboring property at some point? Was this part of a much larger parcel that was separated ended up with a 1 foot property line.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I didn't know if maybe your neighbor or your
No,
knew anything or kind of told you any detail about why it's like this.
so I think that it was probably family property and that got subdivided up later, like, hey, the daughter gets this piece, the son gets this. And I think they probably put that line so that the barn was on one of the property that they got. That's my assumption. Mr. Cotton never told me. I only know back to the previous, the second to last owner who has owned the property since the 90s and, would lease out the barn to different stables and things like that. So I know a little bit of history about that, but not really into the 70s. I don't know much about the property at that point. I do know they used to have chickens in the barn. And I guess when Roswell and Alpharetta started getting developed, into the suburb cities they are now, and Milton started becoming the, where everybody boarded their horses and did their equestrian lessons, that they capitalized on that and converted it into an 8-stall barn. And it's funny, we were selling a drum kit on Facebook Market, and this lady came to the house and bought the drum kit, and she's like, I used to rent your barn. And we're like, what? And she's like, yeah, I rented the barn and I did lessons out of here. And she showed us pictures of our property, with snow down there. And she's like, yeah, this was this horse, and this is from this view. And it was, sure enough, it was our property. It was crazy. And they were, from the 92 or something. I don't know. So it's interesting.
Excellent.
Appreciate it, Mr. Sampson. Michael, do we have anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
We do not.
We do not. Mr. Sampson, if you'd like, you can make any closing statements that you would like. It's not necessary, but it's completely up to you.
Yeah, well, I would just like to say thank you for you guys' time. I do landscape architecture and I speak a lot at zoning meetings, so I know it's kind of a thankless job and it's one of those things that we do. But I appreciate it. Appreciate you hearing my petition, and I just hope that you would grant our variance. We would love to keep the structures where they are, and so my wife would love that too. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Before I close, you can have a seat if you
Okay,
like. Thanks. The public portion of this application. Are there any questions for staff or for the attorney? I'll go ahead and close the public portion of this case. Open the floor for a motion and a second on V23-19-15235 Birmingham Highway with a 3-part variance.
I'd like to make a motion to approve V 23-19 with the following variances. Part 1, to reduce the 50-foot minimum rear yard to 45 feet for an existing house. Part 2, to reduce the existing barn housing animals from 100 feet to 1 foot to the north property line. Part 3, to reduce the existing barn housing animals from 100 feet to 13 feet to the north property line, with the following conditions recommended by staff. The first one being per the variance site plan from Ironwood Design Group, received on November 16th, 2023 by the Community Development Department. And the second condition being to provide a foundation survey prior to vertical construction of the proposed home addition. And I can make this.
I'll second
sorry.
that.
Second. And so I just wanted to also, for that motion, commend Mr. Sampson on his letter. It was not only interesting, but it was also very factual and helpful with the hardship criteria, and made it easy, I think, for us to go through the 4 criteria, which I will go ahead and do. But I will say this, I'm familiar with the property as well, and I'll disagree with the DRB. I would love to see the barn, because every time I drive past, it brings back a lot of happy memories. And the second thing is, Cotton is very smart. Do what Cotton says. He knows everything. He's fixed everything that breaks at my farm all the time. So, and I think that this is probably one of those instances where it was a big parcel, and then they were trying to slip that barn in to your parcel. And I'm just so happy that you bought it and you're keeping it intact. And that's what I think we're really about here. So as we go through the criteria, relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit and intent of the ordinance. As you stated in your letter, this has been here in this state, the house since 1968, I believe, Cotton, and the barn since the 70s. You're just building, which is what triggered this whole thing. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to this piece of property that would be that this has all been in place and you are simply seeking a building permit. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good surrounding properties. It's been in place for many, many decades. And a good job on the many letters of approval. And then finally, the public safety and health and welfare are secured. We laid down 2 conditions from staff to make sure that your new build is by the book, and those are my reasons for the motion to approve.
Laura covered everything there, so there's not much that I can add. Any additional comments or discussion? Okay, I will call for a vote on V 23-1915235 Birmingham Highway with the 3-part variance. Additionally, there were 2 conditions. The first one is per the variance site plan from Ironwood Design Group received on November 16, 2023 by the Community Development Department. And then the second condition is to provide a foundation survey prior to the vertical construction of the proposed home addition. All those in favor of approving V 23-19 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sampson. Please continue to work with the city and their staff.
Good job.
Item 7 on this evening's agenda is consideration of appeals of secondary variances.
None?
Item 8 is old business, the 2024 calendar.
Put on the overhead. These are the dates agreed upon back in October, and we're coming before you at our last scheduled public meeting for a vote.
We need a motion.
Someone want to make a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Zoning Appeals schedule for 2024.
Second.
get a motion from David and a second from Adam to approve the 2024 BZA schedule. Question for you. Our meeting is still going to be at 6 o'clock. Is that correct? Is that the assumption?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the calendar for 2024, I had a motion from David and a second from Adam. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Item 9 is new business.
We have none.
Item 10,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
we got a motion from Laura to adjourn and a second from David. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed